Welcome to Power Up Your Practice, the go-to podcast for law firm owners and managing attorneys working on the business, not in it. I'm Ruby Powers, your guidance to the heart of law practice management, bringing your insights from leading legal minds, trailblazing attorneys, and expert guests who provide practical perspectives on running your firm more effectively and efficiently. And before we dive in, I'm thrilled to announce that my latest book, Power Up Your Practice, is out and available on Amazon. It's packed with actionable advice for growing a successful law firm. Be sure to grab your copy today. And don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter for exclusive tips and resources. And if you're enjoying this podcast, we love your reviews. They help us reach more attorneys like you who are striving to build the practice of their dreams. Prepare to open your mind, be inspired, and power up your practice to the next level. Hi, everyone. This is Ruby Powers, your host and companion with the ever-evolving landscape of law practice management. And I'm really excited to have Daniel Steinberg, the founder and CEO of LawBrokr, today. We've met at conferences. We just recently bumped into each other at the Lex Summit, Lex conference for FileVine back in Utah not too long ago. And I really was impressed with the demo and just thinking about how we can better automate and the intake process and the client interaction with the firm. So Daniel, tell us a little bit more about yourself and thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks, Ruby. It's a special day because you just launched your book here. So I guess the pleasure is all mine. It's an exciting opportunity, and hopefully everyone grabs that book. But yeah, we're on the conference tour together. I think we're seeing each other shortly at ClioCon next week, and whenever this recording comes out, I'm sure we'll have already met. But yes, for those of you that don't know me or unfamiliar with LawBrokr, as Ruby mentioned, my name is Daniel Steinberg. I'm the CEO and founder of LawBrokr. We're an all-in-one marketing platform that really helps digitize the way that potential new clients engage with your firm. Everything from conversational workflows, landing pages, and optimizing the way that clients engage digitally is sort of where LawBrokr fits into the fold from a business perspective in order to really operationalize your practice. We're coming up on our third birthday. We'll be 3 by the time this episode launches, which is super exciting. Long haul for a startup, which is great. And yeah, prior to this, I was working at Clio on the partnership side on both the channel partnerships and the app ecosystem. So fell into LawBrokr from that, and it's been quite the journey.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, I think it's really important to use technology and automate and improve the whole client experience throughout from the beginning to the end. And so we can do it like a deeper dive and more like what LawBrokr does. But I think regardless of whether whatever platform you use or however you organize, what's the importance of, or how would you describe like the pre-qualification platform or like sort of like this genre of in the tech stack? Because I think some people might not even realize it exists.
Yeah, that's exactly right. There's a lot of education that has to happen, which is a blessing and a curse for sure. But at the end of the day, what we try and do with LawBrokr is emulate consumer buying habits. The notion of pre-qualification, the ideation behind that is nothing nuanced to the legal industry. It's across all professional services and all walks of life. And what we're trying to do is simplify that approach with that of the legal industry to really emulate consumer buying habits on things like e-com sites, shopping online through things like your cell phone and so forth, and bridge that with the legal space to make it that much easier for a client to engage with you. As you know, in immigration and those listening across all stages of practice, a lot of consumers have never used a lawyer before. It's super daunting. It's confusing. And quite frankly, they don't know how to engage with something that they've never done before. So when they get pressed with the situation of engagement and how to engage with a lawyer, it becomes scary. They don't really know what path to take, what kind of information you need to provide them. So by tailoring these different experiences on things like your digital assets, whether that be your website, your Google My Business, your social media, and so forth, it really helps guide the path from, first touch to, last interaction to really round out the client experience gap across all law firms. And the best way that I describe it, to go back to your initial question here, is think about LawBrokr or pre-qualification platforms as the front end to the back end of whatever tool stack you're using. So if you're using Filevine, Clio, MyCase, Lawmatics, Smokeball, ActionStep, and every other tool on the market, those are your back end operating systems. LawBrokr and other platforms like such act as the front end side to those back end tools.
So, like you could go on I think from the demo you showed me, it's like there's like we know about like the chats and stuff like that. They're like a chat bot, but this is a little bit more to it. So basically, if someone goes on the website and they're using LawBrokr for one of these pre-qualification platforms, it can ask questions like, how can we help you, or something like that. And then, like, for example, for my immigration law firm, like, is it a family-based matter, or immigration court, or asylum, or employment? And then you can build it out so that so let's say it's asylum. Like, okay, well, what country you're from, or what is the matter? When did you leave your country, or what happened to you, or something? So maybe a little bit with some type of past persecution, fear of future persecution, and then try to whittle it down to more specific, and then that can help guide the process to like what intake or what type of consultation or what information to provide. Is that sort of how it works?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So it's ClickFunnels. It takes people down different journeys based off the type of case or type of matter it is. And the reason that's important is for a couple of different reasons. But first and foremost, it all comes down to standardizing the data collection. So when you have basic contact forms with a big fat text box that says, how can we help you? They don't know how you can help them. So they say immigration. Yeah. And it's like, hold on. Like, I'm an immigration lawyer, but these are all our services. Didn't you read my website? And the answer is no, they didn't read your website, because they're in a stressful situation. It's overcomplicated, and they don't really know what their issue is. So when you start to tailor and guide that experience for them, you can guide them into different sort of buckets. And what it does, it augments the way that you communicate with that client, how you prioritize their case, and ultimately take lead to conversion faster, because you know exactly how you're going to tailor the conversation the moment you get on that intake conversation. I describe it similar to thinking about, like, we don't replace a phone call, right? Phone calls are great. We also don't replace a chatbot. Chatbots also serve a specific purpose. We don't replace any of those tools. But if you think about the first 2 to 3 minutes of a phone call that your reception staff or intake staff might pick up the phone on, LawBrokr and pre-qualification tools, they're meant to capture the same type of data that those individuals might be in the first 3 to 5 minutes of a phone call, but take that in a digital standpoint, right? If we think about it, 78% of consumers are shopping online for a lawyer. You need to think about digitizing experiences to emulate phone calls, because those are diminishing further, right? People are looking for lawyers after hours. They all have jobs. They're on podcasts. They're, doing work from 9 to 5, and they don't know that you have a virtual receptionist for 24 hours and that they can pick up the phone and call you. So you need to start thinking about, how do we emulate other things that we've done in the past, i.e. phone calls, and allow meeting consumers everywhere that they are, so that you can really guide them down a path no matter how they want to engage, whether that be through a platform like LawBrokr, a chatbot, a phone call, or anything else.
That's a really, really good point. And I think, like, in this day and age where people don't, there's a certain generation or so that don't like talking to people on the phone. So this is a way to sort of like take, control in their own hands, and not, but then at the same time, like with this example for my law firm, we're immigration. So we have clients all over the world. And that's the reason why I have reception service for nights and weekends, because all the different time zones and everything that's going on. So like, if you have multiple ways for your client or prospective client to communicate with you and provide services for them. And I think if you can schedule online and you have this tool, this front end to the back end tool, which I think, besides knowing about the chat bots on websites, I feel like this is a little bit like a new genre that a lot of firms don't even though you're turning 3 soon. I think there's a lot of firms who don't realize that they need something like this. And the other thing that I've noticed is that our clients are so much more tech savvy than ever before. They're more pro se, wanting to do things, and you want to meet them where they are. I think if we look to like, what does Amazon do? How can we better provide opportunities to interact with our clients so they don't have to wait, from 8:30 to 5:30 to talk to a human. So
yeah, when I give presentations, like my favorite slide, it's smack down in the center in the first minute that I give, but it shows a bunch of like consumer experience brands like an Amazon, a Nike, a Lululemon, etc. And it's like, why are those experiences so strong, right? Like a lot of law firms forget that you are an everyday consumer. You make purchases of everyday goods and services multiple times a day. There's no difference between the consumers that are trying to engage with you and the engagement that you're having with those brands. And you sometimes have to take your lawyer hat off, switch your mindset and say, how do I make it easy or just as easy for our brand, our law firm brand, to emulate those experiences, to make it that much more simpler for the clients to engage, whether that means having sophisticated software or keeping it simple. Like our software is all about keeping it simple and going back to the basics and the roots. Other law firms might say, okay, well, we want to adopt AI and this tool and that tool, and how much technology is too much technology. But I like to sometimes go back to the basics and pull it back a bit and say, how do we think about other ways that we as people actually engage, and how do we take those learnings and put that into our law practice?
How many pre-qualification platforms are there?
It's interesting. From a legal perspective, I'd say, like you mentioned before, we probably play in the space of like a virtual receptionist, a chatbot, a live chat, etc. We're just an alternative way to engage, right? So we use hyperlinks, which allow us to live everywhere across your digital assets, because website is just one source of truth. So if you bucket us in that category, pre-qualification isn't this nuanced sort of, it's not newfound territory for law firms. But when you bucket LawBrokr as sort of like this all-encompassing platform, from a pre-qualification, a web traffic conversion, landing pages, et cetera, we've built out this holistic sort of marketing hub for your firm that doesn't just sit on the front end, but also provides and understands how people are engaging with you digitally on the back end. So from that nuance and that perspective, there's not a lot of people doing that within the legal space. I'd say you could probably bridge a couple of other tools from other industries and so forth that are a bit more, sophisticated in the way that they think about digital marketing and digital sales and so forth. But from a legal perspective, there's not a ton of people doing what LawBrokr is actively doing right now.
I can sense that. But I've noticed from talking to a lot of law firm owners and in the law practice management space that the front end to the back end, I think we're all trying to like tweak how can we better either use our virtual reception service or our screening or chats or whatever to try to pre-qualify the leads and funnel them in the right place, and to sort of get them in the right place as soon as possible, but also minimize the amount of attorney time needing to assess the situation. And I think like in PI, for example, it's very common for an attorney not to do a consultation. I think in some circles, people are like sort of trying to get the sort of think about like the nurse and the nurse and the doctor model, where if everything's sort of assessed and pre-qualified, and the doctor time will be less when they're interacting with that initial consultation. But no matter how you do it, I think that it's great to think about how can you better pre-qualify people, get them in the right place at the right time as fast as possible, and better serve them, and to make it as seamless as possible, but also conserve attorney time. Because just like at my firm, where I'm in consults a lot, and we have a system of intakes and pre-screening and a whole bunch of other stuff. But anyway, just sort of reimagining how the world works. it's great to know these
Yeah.
tools exist.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's there's, and you just made a couple of sort of comparisons to different practice areas. And I think there's a different use case based off who you are, how you practice, what your processes are. Some people say we want LawBrokr to pre-qualify people out because we have way too much noise and we want a very prescriptive type of case. Other people use LawBrokr to say we want to create a more conducive client experience, and we know that if we do that, it will actually drive not only more growth into our top of funnel, but it will be highly qualified with a lot more intentional lead data so that we can optimize the intake process. So there's two sort of sides to the coin, and it just comes down to your goals, right? Again, it all comes down to like, how do you think about, optimizing your practice and what your goals are? It's not just like, hey, let's adopt a piece of technology and it's going to work the same as, the other firm and the other firm and the other firm after that. I haven't had a chance to read your book yet, but I'm sure it's all about goal setting and how to think about your law practice and, building and scaling a firm. Everyone has to start in different, capacities and subsets of, where they are, and use that as the status quo, as opposed to comparing, well, what's that firm doing and are they doing better than me? They started at a different tipping point than you, right? So it's hard to compare and contrast against every other person or every other firm. You have to think about, where's your firm at? What do we personally care about right now? And then utilize the software accordingly.
So you can add the software to like your website, or maybe like where can you add it to? Where does it pop up?
It really lives across what we like to say. Its biggest capacity and the way that it succeeds for your firm is making sure that it's across all your digital assets. So a digital asset could be living on your website, call to actions like book a consultation, book a strategy call, contact us, etc. Right? Other areas could be Google My Business, the first point of interaction where someone finds you. Other law firms run digital ads, right? And they funnel their digital ads directly into LawBrokr. Other firms have it live on meta ads, social ads, marketplaces like Avo, FindLaw, etc. Because what LawBrokr acts as is your conversion platform. There's a difference between your website, which is your digital asset. It's how people find you. It's like, okay, if you want to learn more about us, go here. But when someone knocks on your digital front door, imagine someone knocks on your door and says, I need help. Instantaneously, we need to make sure that we get them into the funnel and guide them in the right approach. When you do that on things like your website, there's a lot of confusion and there's a lot of noise. So people get distracted from a psychology perspective. This doesn't have anything to do with LawBrokr, but from a consumer psychology perspective, if you give people too much choice and too much noise around it, that's where consumers get lost in translation and they end up bouncing and they go to the next law firm and the next one after that and so forth. So when we think about what is a conversion platform, it's like anywhere where someone knocks on your digital front door and says, I need help, that's where LawBrokr should live.
It's funny. Something you said made me think about websites and just how there's like the pendulum swung, because that's one of the big places for the digital front door, right? And just how there was like a point where like, oh, it's just a living brochure of your firm, and then it got into like flash and videos and got so crazy and stuff, and then it seems like it's gone back to like just be basic and simple and don't overwhelm them with too much. But that's true. I see like there can be decision fatigue, overwhelm. I just think about, and I think this is in the same vein, about reducing the friction of hiring, and the less complication, the easier it is to just communicate with the firm, make sure it's a good fit, and hire. That's what you're trying to do. And so it sounds like these type of pre-qualification platforms are a really great tool to make that happen. And, one thing I've noticed from just whenever I travel or just go do something that's not in the law firm, because I feel like I'm at the firm a lot, it just helps me to see how other companies, like, so we were talking about other industries, communicate, interact with their prospective customers and clients. And the more I do that, the more it gives me inspiration. And I think that's another thing that the listeners, as law firm owners, partners, etc., we should think, like, how easy is it to interact with our firm? What's their first impression? If there wasn't somebody answering the phone, is that the only way people can really have some type of an interaction to get to know whether or not their needs can be met with the firm? And I don't know. This is really good to know, and I think that we'll probably see a lot more firms open to entertaining this, besides like the big firms or like the PI firms that probably are already doing this type of thing on a regular basis.
I hope so, for my case.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you have like statistics on like how, like, you've done case studies where you see where a firm captures more business, qualified leads because of programs like LawBrokr or these types of platforms?
Yeah. So from our analytics that we house internally, and I can't speak to other platforms, but from us specifically, we typically see a 3 to 5x lift in what we call web traffic conversion. So I'll define that quickly. A lot of law firms hire a marketing agency who are our partners, right? We partner with marketing agencies, but a lot of them either hire marketing agencies or they're doing it on their own in a DIY fashion. And their number one metric in their head is, am I getting new traffic to my website every single month? Did I go from 250 to 500 to 700 to 1,000 to 5,000, etc.? That doesn't drive an ROI. That doesn't drive any revenue to your law firm. You're saying, okay, great, I wrote a blog, I did a podcast. All of a sudden, people are finding my firm. It adds this brand awareness element. But when you think about web traffic conversion, that's how much high intent traffic is coming to my website. That's where we play into the mix, right? So the average law firm has a 1% or below web traffic conversion, which means if you're getting 100 web visitors on a monthly basis, for simplicity of math here, roughly 1 to 2 people on a monthly basis are filling out things like a contact us form. And the reason for that is you're either generating bounce rates because it's hard for them to interact with you, or the traffic that you're engaging on your website is not as relevant as it should be, right? So the wrong people are landing on your pages. As law firms, one of the luckiest piece about being a law firm is that, and marketing, is that when someone is searching online for a law firm near me or, immigration lawyer, they likely need a lawyer. They're not just doing it for fun. They might be wrong. They might not need one, but they have some sort of intent, right? It's not like buying a t-shirt where they have to think about it. It's like, do I need help? If yes, search for a lawyer. Does the lawyer agree that I need help? Great. Then we're going to work together. So web traffic conversion is actually one of the biggest metrics that law firms should be thinking about, but it sometimes gets overlooked because it's not necessarily defined. So typically you see about a 1 to 2% web traffic conversion for law firms. On average with LawBrokr, we see about an 11% web traffic conversion across our whole client base. That being said, we typically see about a 3 to 5x lift in web traffic conversion dependent on your status quo, right? So someone that has a 1% might see, a 3 to 5. Someone that has a 10% might see, extenuated from there, whether it goes 1 or 2 points or, 3 points, etc. So that's our metrics. Those are our core metrics that we like to see. And we specifically look at. A lot of those metrics come down to the fact that it's all around emulating, again, client buying habits. So do we, because our platform emulates things like your cell phone and ClickFunnels and gamification and ease of use, that drives increased amount of traffic, right? So those are the metrics that we look at. The other metrics that we look at are lead to conversion. So typically, when you have increased amount of data in a standardized way, no matter where the client comes from, you typically see a faster lead to conversion because you can prioritize the appropriate lead. You know the nuances of the case right away, and you essentially can sell them from there. And I know lawyers hate the word sales, but we're all salespeople here. So let's just, take that off of the table here. That's the, the metric of sales. The more data you have, the more likely you can convert that lead into a paid client, which is why when you evaluate, technology platforms, someone picks up the phone in 10 seconds or less. They ask you a bunch of questions about why you made an inquiry. They then send that question to their teammate. You go on a demo. The teammate knows everything about you, and they show you all the nuances of the platform of how that piece can help what your problem state is. And then you're like, I'm sold. And that's what a good salesperson does. So if you can capture a bunch of data before the intake conversation, you can actually understand the nuances of the sale before you need to ultimately do it, so that you can differentiate yourself between the 3 other lawyers that they likely reached out to.
Something made me think, do you have this in different languages?
Yeah, so we're multilingual as long as the person at the firm can speak the other language. Because it's all custom built on the back end, you can put whatever language you want into it. So we have right now a couple clients utilizing Spanish and Chinese, and obviously predominantly English is standard out of the box. But as long as you have a native speaker in a specific language, you can optimize your campaigns and your question flows however you so choose.
Like, how many questions do you ask before you stop asking them? Like, because I don't know,
7 to 9 on average.
Oh, okay. It seems
and
like
it
you've done
sounds like a lot.
Psychology.
Yeah, and it sounds like a lot, and that's actually a really good question, because a lot of firms are like, well, that seems like too many questions. People are going to bounce, but they don't. And the reason for that is we're talking about yes, no, multiple choice, drop down questions, things that are click buttons, right? It makes it easy for them. It doesn't feel like, they're typing in data. I'm looking at, websites every single day that says, tell us how we can help you. It's like, fine, maybe you don't get, maybe you get people writing stuff, but it says stuff like, I need help. And it's like, need help with what? Like, do you have a personal injury case? Because I'm an immigration lawyer. I'm not sure how you found me, right? Like, there's so many issues with giving a consumer that doesn't understand the nuances of legal the power to share information in a text input versus actually guiding them down information that you want them to provide you so that you can actually help them. And that comes down to, like you mentioned, the psychology of how do you think about questions, the one-by-one flow, and the ease of use so that you can actually capture what's relevant for you. Because at the end of the day, yes, it matters to a law firm. You're the ones that are billing by the hours, that are trying not to waste time on dead-end consultations, et cetera, et cetera. But you also have to empower the consumer, because if you can help them not waste time on their own dead-end consultations, they can then find the next firm that can help them, right? So it's a mutual issue here that we're trying to solve for. It's not like, we're just in it for the law firms. Law firms have to, look at it on the consumer mindset too, and say they likely just inquired with us because they thought we could help them, but something went wrong and we can't, right? You're in the wrong spot. We'd like to help avoid that problem.
Okay, I should probably know the answer to this, but so after you ask the 7 or 8, 9 questions, well, then what happens? Like, you're not talking to a person, right?
No.
You're okay. So the automation and this thought out all the different scenarios and the answers, decision tree, I guess, and then it gets you like a different form or an action or schedule or do whatever it is you're trying to funnel them towards. Okay.
Exactly. Like, the intent is to empower the law firm. So, like I mentioned before, we're the front end to your back end. We don't change the way that you operate your practice. So most of our law firms, which is very unusual for a legal tech company, but they onboard in 24 to 48 hours. And the reason for that is we plug into whatever tools you're currently utilizing on the market. We're not saying, okay, we're replacing X. So now you have downtime, training, migration, onboarding, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's the biggest heartache for a law firm, because you're busy all day. You're in consults, you're doing podcasts, you're doing your, consulting firm, you're writing a book. Why would you have time to now implement something that might impact your practice? And then, by the way, now train however many staff you have on the back end. So when you think about the way that our platform works, we're empowering you to understand your caseloads and what the actual issues are at hand, but we're doing it in a way that it funnels into the tools that you already use. So you're not changing your workflows or your operating processes. You're just operationalizing it so that it's better. And you can actually augment the intake process and be 1% better, 2% better, and ultimately start to create this funnel that you start to create a better client experience, which leads to further growth, et cetera, et cetera.
So it sounds like there's a lot of benefits to it, but like what, if someone were to prepare their firm for a pre-qualification platform, like what would they need to do to prepare, or if they're thinking like, oh, this sounds pretty good, but and then you've said some good numbers, it makes it sound like it'll pay for itself. But like, how does one sort of begin to think about how to onboard a pre-qualification platform?
I think it comes down to doing an audit of your firm and understanding, like, are things broken, right? Like, what's currently happening? Do we think that we could do better? Is there opportunity for us to engage with clients in a deeper way? And are we only offering them one way to engage, right? Are they only able to call us? Are they only able to fill out a contact form? Are they only able to talk to a chat bot or a live chat, et cetera, et cetera? If you're missing one way to engage, you are leaving revenue on the table. So if you don't have an opportunity for a client to engage with you through like a gamified or pre-qualified way, you're essentially saying to yourself, it's okay that we aren't going to activate that channel. You're leaving revenue on the table, because not everyone engages in the way that you're referring to, which is chatbot, contact forms, et cetera. So if not everyone engages in that sense, how much of the potential revenue are we actually leaving on the table? And do we want to fix that, what we call leaky funnel, right? People are falling out of the flow. They're going to other law firms. LawBrokr is about activating a new channel of growth for your firm. But from an onboarding perspective, you don't have to prepare anyone. Typically, I work with like administrative staff or intake teams or marketers if you're a large enough firm. And those are the ones that own this platform. It's not the attorney's job to understand the nuances of their website, their web traffic conversion, all that good stuff, unless of course you're a solo practitioner and you have to do everything. But you have team members that understand the issues that we're talking about today. And it's their job to ultimately say, could this help support the way that we run the practice, or, do our work?
So I guess two quick questions. What made you decide to found LawBrokr, and where does the name come from?
Yeah, so when I was at Clio, I was working with Google on digitizing a law firm online, and that was as simple as, how do we help law firms get on Google My Business? And my previous experience to Clio, I sold advocacy marketing software to massive organizations like Salesforce, Cisco, et cetera. And the bridge between how a law firm was engaging online and building out their digital storefronts versus how the rest of the world and other industries essentially created these experiences that allowed consumers to ultimately engage and purchase their products and services, I felt was broken. And I wanted to fix that problem. So I decided to venture out on my own, and that's kind of how this came to fruition. The name LawBrokr came from a lot of nightless sleeps, because I didn't really know what we were going to, how we were going to call this and so forth. But the initial hypothesis and thesis for LawBrokr was actually like an Uber for law. So we would use our own software that we now give law firms, we would use our own software to pre-qualify clients. And then we would recommend the appropriate attorney to those clients based off the triggers and events that we would capture. So we were sort of that middle person, if you will. And that's sort of where it, bubbled up from. But it plays into the current world that we are right now. Because again, like our software is, that intermediary between that consumer and law firm.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. I get it now. So, it's fun being so in like the law practice management space or legal tech space, because then you can start seeing trends and sort of predict the future. And where there's a need, and I've seen that on some of my other guests have mentioned that as well, especially like going to ABA Tech Show or different of the legal tech conferences and stuff. But that's really cool. I like the origin story. The Google My Business account is so important, and there's always changes, and you have to keep on top of that. And I didn't even know like there was a place where they were dumping questions in there the other day, and I was like, oh my gosh, make sure my team is watching that.
Because it's important.
Yeah.
And those questions and the services and all the little nuances that they keep adding to those profiles, the more you keep that up to date, the more it impacts SEO and people finding you and you bubbling up to the top. So it's more important than people, give it. I think people think it's kind of set it and forget it. Okay, I built my, Google My Business and now I'm live. And that is like, you are live, you're findable. But the more you put into it and the more efforts you put into it, the more, people can find you as number 1, 2, 3, etc.
No, I definitely agree. So that's another note to listeners to go check your Google My Business account and make sure you keeping it up to date and take a look at it on a regular basis. Okay, Daniel, so we are getting to the close. So you are the lucky winner of being asked, what is your favorite board game?
Okay. Why am I the lucky winner for that?
Because everybody gets asked that, but I just decided to phrase it a different way.
Okay, I love it. So I'm not that lucky. I just happen to be similar to everyone else on the podcast. I love it. I think I have to go with Monopoly. Definitely a Monopoly guy.
That is okay. Is there a particular type of Monopoly? Are you on video game, regular board game?
I'm not a video game guy, so
specialty
and I also
genre.
thought we're talking board games, so I'm talking like classic bare bones Monopoly.
Classic bare bones. Okay. Because I've seen a lot of different versions of Monopoly, and we actually have a video game version of it too. Like it makes it go faster, but anyway, that
like the one on your cell phone or whatever that you play on the airplane.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know what game that is. Anyway, like our family can all get their little controllers out and play it. But I think Monopoly is like the one that people say the most. I'm going to have to put the tally on our website of like what the responses are from all the guests. I think your guest number.
I feel like it's such a cop-out answer. Sorry.
I will make
no put people on the spot.
I think I forgot to pre-warn you. So another thing I didn't pre-warn you about, what is your favorite, what do you think is your superpower and why?
I think resiliency. It takes a lot to build a company, and I mean, just life in general, but there are a lot of ups and downs, and like sort of keeping even keel and making sure that you're trending in the right direction, being patient and resilient for, what is to come and building towards something is super important. And it takes a lot of that, especially in the world that I'm in. You're a founder. Everyone listening to this is likely a founder as well of their own, companies and so forth, and law firms. And it takes a lot to sort of be even keel and just sort of look towards, block out the noise and ultimately continue to push forward to win.
No, I definitely agree. And that's a good answer. And I think that's what separates those who can sort of stay the course and those who can't, because there's a lot of change happening all the time. So any other closing thoughts for our listeners before we have to say goodbye?
No, this was really fun. I'll do a shameless plug for you. If you've made it to the 40-minute mark, make sure you get the new book because I hear great things. And what is it? 700 pages that we have to get through on the textbook there. So
yeah,
a lot of work and effort from Ruby.
I will give everyone permission. You don't have to read it from the beginning to the end. It can be a resource book. You can dive into the chapters that you want to. So I give you permission, sort of like Bo, our mutual friend, said that's how he later learned how you're supposed to read Tim Ferriss books. And I was like, yes, it's or certain, whatever. I was like, that's fine. You don't, I think the lawyer brain, we're like, follow the rules, go from the beginning to the end. No, you don't have to. It's a huge resource book, but 25 chapters, covers a lot of content, post-pandemic, virtual assistants, succession planning, buying a building, lots of fun stuff. And unfortunately, the downside of having turned it in a couple of months ago is that the more I learn, the more I'm like, oop, I should have put that in the book. Oop, I should have put that in the book. Like, I didn't talk about pre-qualification platforms. I mean, I think I talked a little bit about.
It'll be in your next one.
I would have to like cool off for a little while before the next one, but we'll
You'll
just
have
put
to
them
create a digital version of things that I missed in my book. Will be your secondary, secondary asset.
Actually, we thought about that, and we're putting them on the Power Up Your Practice website. So we
awesome.
have a way to do this. Well, how can people find you to stay in touch or ask you more questions or what have you?
Yeah. Big advocate of LinkedIn. You can follow me or add me at linkedin.com/d-steinberg9. You can find us at LawBrokr, LAWBROKR.com. Didn't add that to the origin story, but obviously had to drop the E as a tech company and hard to get a domain these days, but we do own LawBrokr with an E now. So there you go, but it's spelled a bit differently. So we make it cool and fun and fancy for the fun of it. But yeah, you can visit there and, request more information or, connect to reach out to me directly. And always happy to have a chat and, meet new people.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for listening. Thanks, Daniel, for joining us as our guest today. I learned a lot more about the pre-qualifying qualification platforms. I'm keeping an eye on that and definitely finding ways to implement those types of systems in my firm and make it faster and easier for clients for that mutual connection between are they qualified and get them into the right place as fast as possible and reduce that friction of hiring. But thanks everyone for listening. We, as Daniel so graciously let everyone know, this is the first episode where the book is actually out. We got notification last night and I've been just ecstatic, and we just made it LinkedIn official today. So it's a real thing. It's a real thing. It's on Amazon.
Love it. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, Power Up Your Practice is on Amazon, and you can also keep the conversation going between our podcast episodes and now access to the book on the Facebook group Power Up Your Practice. Thanks everyone for joining us. We'll see you next time. Take care. Are you feeling overwhelmed by administrative, marketing, or other legal tasks? Well, you're not alone. Many lawyers are in the same boat. They're trying to build up their firm, and they're trying to figure out how to get help to do so. So that's where Staffy comes in. So over 90 law firm owners, just like you, have turned to Staffy for help with their legal, administrative, marketing, and client-facing work. Staffy's mission is to help lawyers find balance while growing their firm with bilingual virtual staff and full HR support. And they take the hassle out of the team management and focus on what matters most, your clients and your practice. I've personally benefited from multiple staff support with about 8 virtual assistants over the last few years with my 2 businesses, including my law firm, Powered Law Group. Now schedule a free consultation with Staffy. It's stafi.cc, and you can use the code RUBY, that's REBY, for a $500 off coupon. Thank you for tuning in to the Power Up Your Practice Law Practice Management podcast. I'm your host, Ruby Powers, and it's been a pleasure sharing this time with you. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to leave us a review, tell someone else about us, and I would love to get this podcast shared with others to reach more listeners like you. Don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter for exclusive content, tips, and updates straight to your inbox. And exciting news, our book, The Power Up Your Practice, is out and available on Amazon. It's packed with strategies, 25 chapters, to help you elevate your practice and achieve your goals. So join us next week as we dive into more advice and insight on law practice management. We'll see you next time.